Janu Barua is a writer based in Bangalore. Her first book, Next Door, a collection of short fiction, was published in 2008 by Penguin India to wide critical acclaim. Her second book, Rebirth, was published in 2010 and was shortlisted for the Man-Asian Literary Award and the Commonwealth Prize. She is currently working on her second novel. And the panelist, Mitra Pukhan, is an award-winning writer, translator, columnist, and classical vocalist on North East India, acknowledged to be one of the foremost writers working in English from this region. Her book includes The Collector's Wife, published by Penguin Zuban, which has been very well received in the country and abroad. It is the first novel to be published in English from the Northeast, jointly by two major publishing houses. It has won critical acclaim worldwide. It has been translated into Manipuri recently. This translation has won the Manipuri Sahitya Parishad Award for translation, and the book, A Monsoon of Music, published by Penguin Zuban, is a remarkable exploration into the lives and struggles of musicians. She has also written a number of children's books over the years. And Durga Hasariga, the other panelist, one was born and brought up in Shillong and completed his master's in economics from Guwahati University. He began his career in the Assam Civil Service in 1983 and is presently posted as Secretary in the Environment and Forest Department. Durga has been writing ever since his school days, and his short stories have been published in several magazines and journals. His first novel, About Spring Winter, was published by Penguin in India in 2007, followed by Luck, a collection of short stories, in 2010, and his second novel, Son of Brahma, in 2014. So we have today well-known creative thinkers here, and they will enlighten us on the topic guns and guitars, which perhaps will give us will throw light onto the political, sociological, and literary cultural situations of the northeastern states. I invite Janavi to moderate this session, and it will be from up to now. It is 7:15, and the time for the discussion is 1 hour 15 minutes, and after that we will have two classical performances, that is Chakyarkuthu and Ottam Thullal, which are two typical Kerala performing art forms. And over to the panel discussion.
Thank you, Sri Rajivan. He's introduced my panelists already, Mitra Pukhan, Dhruva Hazarika, and myself. We're going to be moderators slash panelists. We're all going to talk today. There's just three of us. The topic for our panel is a very interesting and a very wide and very deep one. Guns and guitars, literature, revolt, and the question of identity. This pertains to the Northeast in particular today, and the first question I would like to bring up to both my panelists is there something called the Northeast? What is the Northeast? Is there something in these 8 states that defines them, that ties them together? And would you say it's a fair label or statement to say the Northeast? And we'll take off from there. I'll first ask Dhruva Hazarika to tell us a bit about the Northeast, its diversity, its unity, to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Thank you, Jahnavi, and a very good evening to everyone present here. To Mr. Rajivan especially for inviting us. This is a question that has been often asked in the other literary fests, seminars. In fact, 2 years back when we were in the Bangalore Literary Festival where Jahnavi and Mitra Baido in Assamese means sister. We were there and this same question is asked. My reply was this, or my answer was this, that if we can have southern India, the south of India, we can have the north of India, or in Gujarat, western India, why can't we have the northeast of India? It is true that it is a geographical construct in the sense that anything northeast of Delhi is northeast, anything south of Delhi is south, anything west of Delhi is west, but there is a centrality to this and a centrifugal geographical understanding of the whole thing. Jahnavi's question was whether, Jahnavi, if I am right, you have asked whether there is, one can call it a northeast. Yes, I say there is something called a northeast through the workings of geography or politics or the Constitution of India, or by the very fact that we need a certain kind of nomenclature in as much as I have a name, so we have a name for anything that is geographical, I think.
It's more than geography, isn't it? It's a lot of cultural, historical, linguistic ties which do bind them together. For example, an Assamese person can relate to a Manipuri, can relate to a Naga, can relate to a Khasi, in a way that somebody from what we call the mainland cannot and does not. What do you think, Ruby Baidu?
Yes, actually I feel, when you're within a region, you see the diversity because, as I said a while ago, it is a very diverse region, 220 ethnic groups, so many languages, so many language families, so many different cultures. Yes, within it you see. But then it is a geographical construct. It is to the northeast of the country. That's true. It's not just to the northeast of Delhi. It's to the, when you look at the map, yes, it's in the northeast of the country, just as there is the south of the country, the west of the country. But having said that, I find that when I come out of the region, many people tend to believe that there is a homogeneity within the region. This comes from not having met too many, perhaps, people from this region. It's only now that people are coming out as students, as people who work, as people who are taking part in so many different, seminars and educational things and so on. So I am optimistic. I feel that people will, it's okay if you continue to refer to us as the Northeast, people from the Northeast, not Northeasterners, but people from the Northeast. That's okay. But Northeasterners has an entire different meaning altogether. So I feel, these distinctions should be made, perhaps.
Actually, interesting you said that, because I want to pick up on something she said. When you said that people think we're homogenous, that we are one type of people from the Northeast, while that is not true, at the same time, on the other side, there are very many common threads which tie us together, and we understand each other. But, like you said, I'm being very politically incorrect when I say this, and I've said this in an interview in the Open magazine. The title of the interview came as "The Writer Who Doesn't Mind Being Labeled as From the Northeast." So I do say that right now, for the time being, perhaps I'm not unhappy with the term Northeast, because for some time it's going to serve our purpose, because it's a small place, a very small state, very far away, very remote in the northeast part of the country. And if by virtue of this grouping together, by being put together in a cluster, people look at us for some time, I think for some time we shouldn't be unhappy. The danger here is, if this continues, if this extends, and you look at us only as Northeast writing, or only as Northeast people, we do hope in time, like Russian literature, then you distinguish between a Tolstoy and a Dostoevsky. American literature, you distinguish between a Hawthorne and a Faulkner. We do hope that in time you'll pick up on individual writers, individual poets, individual artists. But for the time being, I think it's not a bad thing. It's a big umbrella, and a lot of the big publishing houses show an interest in publishing writings from the Northeast. It is serving us for the time being, but we wouldn't want it to continue for too long, is what I would probably like to say.
Yeah, if I may add to that, when it comes to identity, I think Dhruvo will perhaps agree with me, is that, yes, I am a Northeasterner. I am from the Northeast. I'm a person from the Northeast, but that's not all I am. That's one of my identities, and it's an identity I am happy with, as you said. I'm happy with it, but that's not all I am, and I hope my readers can, find out through the layers what else I am.
Dhruvo, what would you say about that? Do you want to, are you happy with being under that umbrella for the time being? Are you unhappy? Do you want to see changes?
No, I'm basically happy being an Indian. That's always there in my blood and in my soul, because what we get in India, Jahnavi, it's something unique. The kind of incredible variety we have, the kind of exchanges. In the Northeast alone, they say it's a mini India with 126 dialects and languages. Nagaland alone, our writer friend Rita from Nagaland is here. Yesterday we were talking about the 16 major tribes in Nagaland alone. Not to talk about beautiful Manipur, where we have, I think, 18 major tribes and equal number of tribes in Arunachal. The Brahmaputra Valley comprises, it's unique. Those of you who have been there, please don't mind if I'm showing off about my own region, because if this is God's own country, the Northeast is the goddess's own country. We have beautiful women, we have beautiful trees, we have beautiful rivers, we have beautiful animals. We have the only river which has a masculine name. It doesn't mean anything, but it's supposed to be a very powerful river. At 891 kilometers, it's the one of the most powerful rivers in Asia or in the world. We have 22, Jahnavi, I'm just going a bit out because I'm in the forest department right now, but then we have 22 sanctuaries, 5 wildlife parks, national parks, and 312 reserve forests. This is by just way of a statistical understanding about the kind of variety we have in Assam alone, and Assam is one of 7. So the incredible variety of the Northeast is basically a mini India. Those of you who are actually Northeast specialists, we have the Northeastern specialists who know the Northeast perhaps more than Jahnavi or I or Robin Nangom from Manipur will know, because they make the Northeast their telescopic site about the kind of cuisines we have, the culture we have, the dances we have, the languages we have, the dialects we have, the kind of attitude we have. We are known as there was a time when there were about 46 underground organizations running their writ from one end to the other. But we have overcome that. And now we are, I think, a region where Mitra Baido with her music, Jahnavi with her writing, are excellent writers who write in the regional languages, Assamese, Khasi, Meitei, Mizo. They are doing wonderful jobs, and the only requirement I feel right now is very good translations for the rest of India to know the beauty of the writings, especially because it's a literary festival of the Northeast. Jahnavi, I got carried away.
It's absolutely fine. You gave us very interesting things to think about. Dhruvo talked about the question of feeling like an Indian, and that, of course, is the first and foremost thing all of us feel when we wake up in the morning, does we feel Indian. But this is an interesting question, is that while we feel and felt Indian in the Northeast, when you come out of it, as a child I grew up in Delhi, sometimes it's a little startling to realize that people outside don't always look at you as an Indian. So this is something I want to put to the both of you, that what do people in the Northeast feel What do they perceive, and what do people from the outside see them as? And what do you feel about it? What do people there feel about it? Mitra Baidu.
Yes, of course it's true that many people from the rest of the country are a little taken aback when people from our region say we are Indians as well, we hold Indian passports and so on. So I feel that, the way forward is to explain to them, not be confrontational or not take umbrage unnecessarily. I feel that, okay, fine, you don't know, there are many things I don't know about you as well. So let there be a give and take. You explain about yourself, let me explain about myself, and let's meet somewhere, okay? And only through that. And when so many people are coming out of the region and people are also going into the region, then surely this, knitting together will come. And I think, of course, it is sometimes, I won't say, hurtful is, I don't know about hurtful, but I'm definitely taken aback when I'm mistaken sometimes. Or I know so many other people who are, especially from my friends from the other, the hill states, they are mistaken for somebody from East Asia, from beyond the borders of our country. I can understand their hurt, but I think, for me, I can only speak for myself. The way forward is to explain and maybe, take out the Google map and show them, okay, this is where we are.
Interesting here is what you're saying about being mistaken for Southeast Asia. Is that I think a little explanation, like you said, we should explain. Perhaps a little explanation is necessary here, is that in the past we have had actually very strong ties with Southeast Asia. In a sense, the northeast of India is the interface between Southeast Asia and the South Asia or the rest of the Asian continent. Very little known fact about our Thai Ahom kings, who are from the great Thai race from the Shan state in Burma. They're connected to the Thai kings in Thailand, to tribes in Laos, Cambodia. And there were a lot more interaction that way, looking east, in the olden times than it was looking west to the subcontinent, really. So what we wear, what we eat, the way we behave, our manners, to a large extent, are influenced by those cultures, right?
Yes, even language families, so much is, because the roots to our region, only now they are through the rest of India. Previously, they were through what is now Bangladesh and through Burma, through Myanmar. So that is why our links are there, and that is why some of us look
exactly what you said is that the roots are, I think for a lot of Southeast Asian cultures are from southern China. The roots of a lot of the Southeast Asian cultures are from southern China, so also the Thai Ahom race, the great Thai race. So one can't help looking like that, I guess, sometimes. But the interesting thing now is what you said about explaining, and I think more than explaining, a soft integration, literature, music, clothes, food. So I had this very interesting example, I think I've said it before in the Bangalore Literary Festival. I was on holiday in Coorg, and I get a call from the Mint newspaper saying that we want one of your favorite recipes. So immediately I thought of tenga. So for anybody from Assam, when you say tenga, it's like rasam here, it's like a particular kind of sour, very light curry we have in summer. So I said, masor tenga, fish tenga recipe I can send you. I'm not a great cook, so I knew that well. Then the journalist from Bombay is telling me, no, not masor tenga, that's very common. Give us some other tenga. Then I realized that, okay, we've arrived into the mainstream because now a journalist from Bombay knows the difference between the different tengas. So I think soft integration, clothes, food, music, films is probably the way to go. Rupara, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I agree with you, Janavi. You see, we generally, civilization as such, if you look at the great civilizations, the Mayan, the Egyptians, and the Greeks, Romans, Indian, whatever, it's always first to do with architecture, and then perhaps to do with food. They had this kind of a food, they had that kind of an architecture, they had this kind of a literature. So if food and masor tenga, I would agree with you that maybe 5,000 years later when they look for our fossils, they'll probably find some Masortenga fossils also.
They probably find fish bones, but that's common to Kerala and Assam. They probably find fish bones in all of us. Music. It's been mentioned that Mitra Baidu here is a classical musician. She's a very well-known vocalist in Assam. So I've grown up listening to her sing, particularly in the Durga Puja time when she sing in my aunt's house. So music, perhaps because you sang in the Hindustani tradition, which is common to the rest of India. And I think C.S. Lakshmi was telling us how she did Carnatic music and she knew Telugu because she had to do Carnatic music. That's another way, right? Music, the way forward.
Yes, of course. Music is part of everybody's heritage. Everybody sings, whether they are trained musicians or not. Everybody sings. Everybody does something to do with. Everybody appreciates music. I won't go into all the quotations that are coming into my mind. I shall not bore you with that. But even when it comes to music, actually, in a way, our region is a kind of a melting pot of so many things, cuisine, dress, and so on, and also of music. Okay? The music from the eastern region, the music from the region to the east of our region integrates with the music from the west of our region, that is the rest of India, and it has created in Assam especially a very different kind of music. I sing in the Hindustani classical tradition, which was brought in surprisingly by the British. Not that they sang, but the Bengali clerical staff that came with them, they carried this tradition of Hindustani classical music into Assam, and then it became integrated into our land. But the music of the indigenous music of Assam is something that is an integration of the East and the West. You find that there are many come from Myanmar, they come from China. Many of our festivals, the songs, they come from, they're familiar melodies which you can find maybe in Thailand. In Thailand, there are dances which are very similar to bamboo dance of Mizoram and also the Bihu and so on.
Also in Myanmar, the bamboo dance.
Also in Myanmar. So, which as you come away from that region, it becomes more what I would say, the Western influence. Western not as in the west of the globe, but the west of the rest of India.
Coming up onto the stage, I think somebody was commenting on what we were wearing, the two of us, Mitra and I. So what we wear is Mekhela Sador, very similar to what is worn in Kerala. It's a two-piece outfit, usually in white and gold, very similar to what is again worn here. But the interesting thing here is that the patterns and the motifs, the weaves, are things you would find on the streets in Myanmar, on the streets in Bangkok, on the streets in Laos. I brought clothing in those countries and I wear it in Assam and they think that I bought it in Assam. So those are the very strong influences. What I'm trying to say here is that there is a lot of Southeast Asian influence. We are no doubt different from the rest of the country, so sometimes you can't blame the rest of the country for looking at us differently. What I suppose we need to do going forward is to explain it, or to infuse it, or to blend it, to make a mekhela into a skirt which can be worn in Delhi perhaps. That's a small way of looking at things. Having said this, having talked about all this melting pot and coming forward and explaining ourselves, there still is a very strong feeling of alienation all across the Northeast. Rupada mentioned about the underground outfits now being quiet, but they were vociferous and simmering for a very long time. So there's very strong hurt there. I'll ask Rupada to explain why that perhaps came about and what is happening now and what is the way forward. I'll ask Ruby Baidu to later.
I'll speak for Assam for a while, then probably about Nagaland, if I can. For almost 25 to 30 years, we have had insurgency in the Northeast. And it was the kind of insurgency that disallowed a dialogue, that the other side had no say whatsoever. And so long as I keep speaking, you have to listen. You are not supposed to interrupt. That took about a quarter of a century. Many people died, civilians, army personnel, innocent victims, children, women. It was a cauldron of grief, as far as I can tell. I've been a civil servant most of my life, and I have seen certain things that that this officer perhaps sees. So I have seen the agony of sides, the civilians as well as the non-civilians. Now, Jahnavi has asked, why did it develop? That is, of course, slightly, it probably required the whole evening or even tomorrow to analyze and narrate to you exactly. So, so I'll make it brief and say that any sense of insurgency is born out of a sense of alienation. And this alienation can, it can arise from either economic reasons, psychological reasons, it could be racial reasons. They say that there is a great divide in the Northeast between the Aryan stock and the Mongoloid stock. There is a subtle sense of difference for over many years. Therefore, the insurgency as such by the various groups was born out of some kind of alienation, and also as proclaimed by the sociologists, by the analysts, by a severe sense of unemployment. But that over the years, because of, I think, globalization, which the sweeping globalization that has come across India as well as, it has affected everybody throughout the world, that has taken its toll on insurgency in its original form. So now we are much better off. This is slightly superficial, like I told you, in the sense that to go into a proper analysis would probably take the whole evening. Jahnavi.
But it's a very fair analysis, and you've said something my father, who also was a civil servant, always said, is that we need development and employment, and all these problems are going to die down naturally. So once the boys and girls are busy developing themselves in the state, all these other problems will just fall by the wayside. It's a simplistic way of looking at things, but it is a way to start, perhaps. We've talked about the politics of it, the cultural aspects of it, the history of it. Now we come to the real thing, what we're here for, the literature of it. Of course, there's one particular section which is called the insurgency literature. There's poetry woven around it, there are novels written around it, and I'd asked Mitra Baido to talk about that. And then we perhaps go on to the other writing of the Northeast, which does not really mine too deep into this well of insurgency, the normal writing, what we write about perhaps. Could you tell us a little bit about the insurgent poets' writings which deal directly with this problem in that region?
Yes. After all, literature, like so many, most art forms, they reflect